Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back, everybody.
Guys, please do subscribe to both channels. EEARTS, also over to the original Evolutionary Energy Arts, where we're at 66.4. Wow.
Yay.
You know, the guides just wanted to come through and say to us, hey, your job is just simply to be the messenger. Just give the message and let it go. That's actually what they did bring to us today. And Cindy did do some channeling, of which I'm going to try to give you as good as I can of what they were trying to get across. And, you know, I would just hope it's not lacking too much in the explanation, because these concepts are really, really deep. They're really, really, really deep. And you know, here we are. I'm 57. Cindy is, if she doesn't mind. Well, I'll let her say. So I didn't say.
She's 49. So, yeah, they are deep. Mike and I, we've both been on a journey seeking wisdom, kind of, sort of, in ways most of our lives. Looking for wisdom in different ways, but what's difficult to get across is we came to this place and we agreed to put on certain filters, to have certain understandings and not have certain understandings. And sometimes people just want to know why. Okay, fine, you don't have an understanding, tell me why anyway. So we're going to do our best there.
So if you go over to Consciousness and Reality on Evolutionary, you'll notice that the very first videos I ever did were on the fractal nature of the universe, talking about ascension being truly the pathway to immortality in many ways, the nature of reality and consciousness as far as true health. You know, ye are gods. Who are we? I mean, this was really all I wanted to do was talking about consciousness and really try to explain the bigger picture, because this world is so under a glamour, for lack of a better word. Like, glamour is where something is under a spell, and we're under the spell of these dark entities. But you know, the ultimate truth, yes, is that they are us and we are them, and we are all part of a oneness that is almost incomprehensible as long as we are, you know, in these vehicles. These vehicles are very limited in what they can do in a Kali Yuga. As you get out of the Dark Age and you start expanding outwards into a Bronze Age, you're going to find that your vehicle is not as limited. And then when you get into a Silver Age, your vehicle is amazing compared to being in the Dark Age with the same vehicle. The vehicle is going to change. It's going to expand. It's going to grow. And Cindy's ready to share. And then the Golden Age, hang on tight.
So the key word is expansion. And how do we expand? What does that look like? Why do we want to expand? And we want to look to, well, source wants to expand. So the primal nature of our very being is that of expansion. So what's the best way to expand? I want you to think of a heartbeat. As the heart breathes in or goes in, it contracts, and then it expands, and the whole universe is like this heartbeat. I want you to think of that. So sometimes in order to expand, we have to contract. And that's when we find ourselves in this dark time, this very difficult time, where we're in bodies that are actually created for us to have limited understanding. And why? So we can expand ultimately. It's the big picture.
What is a fractal? A fractal is a rough or fragmented geometric shape that can be split into parts, each of which is at least approximately a reduced size copy of the whole, a property called self-similarity. You're a fractal. I'm a fractal. Cindy's a fractal. We're all fractals. So, again, think about a diamond. Think about how a diamond has all these different surfaces depending on how it's cut. Each one reflects light. The light, again, is ultimately information. It's knowledge. And each one will refract that light and that knowledge in a different way. And that's just the nature of things. Again, every single one of us has source in us. And we really truly are source. When you go to the book of Revelation and it says, the question is, when's the end going to come? It's going to come when man realizes that man is source himself. And that is the end. It's the end of the whole illusion. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. What's self-realization? Self-realization is the goal of yoga and of the yogis.
Mm-hmm. And I want you to hold this thought of the diamond for a moment, because that's very, very, very important when we're talking about this and dealing in times that we are dealing with. And I want you to think about how that diamond is made and how the pressure this diamond is put under, so much pressure to be as beautiful as it is and as strong as it is. This diamond goes through some really incredibly painful. It would seem to be, it would be very, very painful to think about what a diamond goes through, all that crushing pressure. But we are all just as beautiful and just as bright as these diamonds, because we go through the same intense things. We are all going through a lot of pressure right now, but we can all refract our own light in our own magnificent way. And I think that's what we are here to discover is, okay, with all the pressure and everything that I've been put under, how exactly am I going to refract my light? I want to see. And that's exactly when we take a look at ourselves, and we want to see ourselves so that we can have a deeper understanding of who we are. How do we function? What are we doing here? Where are we going? And these are all things for us to find out. It's a blessing.
So when we look at this, these big black piles, how does something like that, how does that blackness become something that can reflect so much light? How does coal, become a diamond through intense pressure? How does the darkness turn and become the light? This is what's going on a massive, massive scale. And that oneness of all, it's just mind-blowing. So again, we live in a fractal multiverse. And it is a multiverse. It's not just a universe. When you look at blood cells under a microscope, each one of them moving at its own speed and way, going with the flow, but each one is unique. Each one is an individual unit of consciousness.
Each one has a purpose. Each one has a goal. Each one has information to give to the other one. So I want you to think about these blood cells this is a lot of fun. I want you to think about blood cells for a moment. They sit there and they vibrate back and forth, and they kind of bump up against each other. And when they bump up against each other, they might trade information, a little bit like Go Fish. Hey, do you have this? No, Go Fish. Okay, do you have that? And they're going to trade information that's helpful for each other so that they can be healthy and strong. And think of us as blood cells. Sometimes we go into the store and we might bump into somebody who just happens to have the information we need to put together a larger piece of our own individual puzzle.
And for those flat earthers out there and those people that think we're living under a dome, the dome is a permeable membrane. So if you want to view Earth and its atmosphere as just a cell, like any one of these blood cells that are permeable, things can penetrate the Earth, yet the atmosphere is holding us together too. So this is again that as above, so below. So when you're looking at fractals and you might say, okay, so it's all fractals, what does that really mean? Again, we might even understand that each person is a cell in the earth is a cell in the universe is a cell in the multiverse, and it goes on forever. But it's also understanding our consciousness itself and how it changes as we go again through these different cycles, these different yugas. And you could relate these different yugas in many different ways, as you see over here: descending material, ascending material, descending energy, ascending energy, descending mental, ascending mental, descending spiritual, ascending spiritual. You could also view it as a return to wholeness in so many ways. When we're down here in the Kali Yuga, it's almost like we are cut off from ourselves. We are truly cut off from ourselves. We are multidimensional beings. The greater part of us is not the part of us that's having this incarnation in this 3D reality. The greater part of us lies without. Yet all of it is the whole of us. So as we start heading back up here, it's like we are becoming more integrated with the greater us. You've heard of the higher self. And, there is a really good reason for understanding the higher self aspect of things. When we look to where we are now, it's kind of like we're this guy. He's looking into a mirror. He can't see through this mirror. One-way mirrors, right? Where, this person can see that. So if this is like the 5D you, this is the 3D you can't necessarily see the 5D you, but the 5D you knows what the 3D you is doing. It can see, and it could basically record the experiences that we're having here and now. So it's kind of that scenario. I hope that maybe gives a little perception.
I think that'll give a really good perception. And then I also want you to understand that we are in a limited space so that we can explore ourselves, every inch of our being, and understand our potential as higher self is looking essentially from above, having a bird's eye view of all of our actions, all of the things that we might possibly do. Higher self has been able to calculate this out and already understand what's going to come of it. But we come down here in a contracted space and we're given limited information to see how far can we really, really grow. And if we already know everything, if we're already given all the answers to the test, then we haven't really grown.
This is another way of depicting that. And again, you could use different analogies. You could say, okay, this is the 3D me. This is the 4D me. That is when I shed this vehicle. And in terms everybody understands, when we die, the body dies. Then the other part of us, the astral and above, is kind of free to roam and reflects, learns, grows after processing everything that we went through. But there's still another higher aspect of us, which we could view as that 5D aspect. And then you could actually start going into the you that is emanating from all these circles, which leads back to the true source. There's a lot of different ways to look at this. But again, we have to realize we don't get the whole story when we're in this little vehicle. These brains don't they don't allow you to have the whole story. So when we were I was asking a question to the guides again about the cycle of the yugas and the precession of the equinoxes, because they are correlated, but they didn't come straight out and say, yeah, they're correlated. No, they had to explain that we have such a limited perspective on things. It's a distorted perspective, but it's necessary for us to operate in this 3D reality. We have to have that more limited perspective. Again, these bodies could not contain all of who we are. They're not built to contain the totality of ourselves. They can't withstand it. And in fact, as you develop, if you develop spiritually too fast, and this might be a rare thing, but you could actually get to the point where your body is starting to not be able to handle the energy that's coming into it. Because as we pull in more of the higher self, the physical body has to acclimate, or it might actually disintegrate. So that is something that is also part of why we have to do things in a kind of a slow and steady pace.
So important, because it's not just the body can have a difficult time. The mind, as we get more and more information, and if we are not prepared or equipped to take in this information and do what with it, it's just going to come in the form of stress and anxiety, and we don't want that. That's why we really want to work on the meditation, work on the mantras, work on the spiritual growth, work on the healing, because this is going to bring the information in at a good pace that's going to be healthy. But Micah's right. There's many beings where the information comes in so fast and the physical body is just not able to accept it. But again, that's where we do have choices to eat right, to, do the right thing, make sure we don't get stressed out. And if we do get stressed out, go find ways to de-stress. There's right ways to do things and wrong ways to do things. And one thing that I don't like to see is when people awaken too fast and they have problems because they're not ready for the information that's coming in. They're not ready to translate it, because that's also what this is about. It's about our ability to translate the light of the information that we can receive.
Yeah, and what you're seeing are some photos taken of people exhibiting the Tibetan rainbow body, because we ultimately are light. So we are consciousness. We are consciousness. We are energy. This body is really just energy, but it's basically going at a very slow frequency. So, many of these, as you could see, these different, we've talked about this numerous times, these Tibetan monks, through their practices, they will consciously decide when it's time to leave. They're not necessarily dying. They're deciding, this is when I'm leaving the body. And so they go into a meditative state and their consciousness leaves and the body slowly shrinks often. Sometimes it just literally disintegrates. Sometimes there's hair and nails left, and other times nothing. But it's a conscious willed desire at a particular time by these monks. This is how much control they have over their consciousness and also over their bodies. As you can see, you could see right through him. And so again, this is talking about the Tibetan rainbow body, because ultimately, we are consciousness, which again is a form of energy. And, we can do amazing, amazing things. When we're in 5D, we are more of what you would call a light body being. Now, there's always these twists, these turns that we have going on with our society. When you look to the tribes that exist, say deep down in Brazil, this particular person was the last person of his tribe that was living with Mother Earth in a very, very natural state. And we might in these times have the tendency to think, that there's something less than us because they're not taking advantage of things that we might take advantage of, like utilities. The food, that all the variety of foods that are available to us at any time under normal times, that's all changing now. And it's all changing, even though there might be dark intentions behind what's being done by the controllers. in some ways, whether they like it or not, they're preparing us to let go of a lot of the things that we've been, very, very comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. And that takes time too. We don't want to push anything. We don't want to traumatize anything. But when I saw this, I knew that these beings are so in touch with Earth. They understand that they're not dying. They have decided to go to another realm. They know that they are not gone. It's just our 3D perception, our 3D reality. This is how we understand it. This is the best way that we can make sense of it in these bodies. But I can tell you and promise you, these tribesmen, these beings, they know exactly what is happening, where they are going, because they never lost touch. They never lost touch. And, we might think that, they don't have AC and they don't have anything, but they have the mother. They have everything that the mother could ever offer them, and they have their ancestral understanding, and they have their knowledge. They have their gained knowledge that they've all gained together as a tribe. And I think that's just probably the best place that anyone could ever be, is in that closeness and what's the word I'm looking for? That intimacy in a way, and nothing bad, but intimacy and understanding what everyone else understands. And you all have this basic understanding of the all and the earth and the mother and what she can offer. So you share that intimately.
And so this entire tribe is gone now. And they found his body lying in a hammock. And again, it's just in true Western form, they took it to the city to do an autopsy. That's not what he would want.
No. He'd want to mesh with the mother.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what's been missing from our society, is that understanding. Why do we work so hard? Well, we want to have a car. Okay, why do you want a car? Well, so I could get around. Okay, maybe I could get a good job, and then maybe I could buy a house. Why do you want a house? Well, it would give me security, make me feel good. I'd attain a house, have my own castle to be king of. And ultimately, why would you want this? Why would you want that? It just goes on and on. Ultimately, you're pursuing happiness, which you can keep acquiring things, and you're never going to necessarily acquire happiness. These people have happiness often in just their everyday existence with little things, the littlest of things. Noticing the behavior of a particular bird, or a fish or something, or just the weather, just being in amazement at all the wonders that Mother Earth is always showing to us. And so, in a way, like again, what Cindy's trying to get through, they decided to leave. So, whether that shows it was a heart attack or whatever it was, or inconclusive natural causes, that's what they do for most now, because they don't want to tell you what the real cause is. But there have been a lot of tribes, a lot of people that have decided to leave for one reason or another. The Anasazi, sophisticated civilization, just disappeared. Or did they evolve into other tribes of Indians in the Southwest? This is one of those mysteries. They arose as a civilization 1500 BC or thereabouts. That's what they tell us. And then they built these structures that are amazing, and we've seen some amazing structures ourselves in New Mexico. Just wild. And Cindy did pick up on some vibrations, and on some of them where it felt like there were some, it felt like they were trying to get away from some cannibalistic beings. Let's just put it that way. But what happens is sometimes people just don't mesh with the society around them, with the world around them, and so they want to go to a different world. And we can do that. Sure, it might look like we died, or it might look like they just disappeared, as in the case of the Anasazi. And I'm going to jump on just to keep going with this particular line of thinking here. Here you are looking at Anunnaki. We're going to get a wiki. Yeah, Anunnaki myth. Now, the Anunnaki, for the most part, were giants. But when we look to the yugas, so are we. So are humans. Humans are larger in each corresponding yuga as you ascend, and then get smaller as you descend. And it's interesting, too, that the Anunnaki, when we scan them, they are the source of so many of our legends. When you look at these aristocratic vampires, that's them. That is them. And, what do they eat? These are 4D beings. But on 4D, from a 4D perspective, it's just as solid as 3D in a 3D perspective.
It's a lot of information, but some people are getting more and more curious. They want to understand more. They want to know more, and that's because of the light photon that we are all moving into now. It's like we can sense and know and feel that there's other things out there, and that this isn't all that there is. There's a lot more, and a lot of people are waking up in mass and realizing that those that have been our controllers for a very long time are very, very embedded in our societal stories and the movies that we have watched. And it becomes quite amazing when that goes from, oh, wow, that was just a movie, to, oh, my, there is some reality to this.
Yeah, and just think about it. The vampires are depicted as aristocratic, are they not? I mean, often they are. They're not really represented as brute beasts. They're usually very eloquent, very devious, they have like a sexual vibe to them too, but they're very dark. They're all about self-interest, and they are also immortals, so to speak. And the Anunnaki believe that they are immortals, as they have merged with AI. They have merged with all the nanotechnology. And so they do live for thousands and thousands of years, typically.
And it's possible too. It's not that it's impossible. I mean, for us, we could be living a lot longer, but look how we are so surrounded by poisons. I mean, literally poisons. Just look on the ingredients bottles and then look up some of those ingredients and what they do to the human body. And we've been consuming them all along, and I mean, just as an example, the last video that we did, look on the ingredients, and it shows up as this bug, and somebody says, oh yeah, that's just red dye. But if you look up that red dye, it shows it comes from a bug. So there's more light coming on the situation. We're learning more and more every day.
Absolutely. So yeah, very much when you're seeing these vampires. Now there are other type of energetic beings that are vampiric in nature as well. So, that is something else, but really, absolutely, a lot of this is coming from the Anunnaki. And as you see this, today, these Anunnaki are often portrayed as the equivalent of the Old Testament version of that dark god that tells, to kill, 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 kill and destroy. Then the giant aspect. And, again, there's so many legends of these cannibalistic giants as well. And when we asked, we were scanning this, yeah, they very much are exactly that. What's their preferred diet? It's meat, meat, meat. This is their preferred diet. That's who these beings are. That then explains an awful lot about, again, why the sacrificial lamb would smell awful good to them.
I never understood that in the Bible either. I guess it was something that I just deflected because I didn't really want to take a close look at it. But whenever I read that and the Lord God smelled the burning flesh, I mean, come on, that was so horrible. But I wanted to believe in something bigger than myself so bad. I just let it go. And, I don't think that's the right thing to do. Looking back, I should not have been afraid to capture that thought and say, whoa, 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 what is this? This is not normal. And inspect that so I could get moving on with my life.
So then we get to the metaverse. And this is what the guides wanted us to speak to you about, because this is another one, and this is a big one. This is a big attempt to, again, hook people in. And when we look at the power structure and everything about this world that we're in, it's all theirs. This is the controller's realm, so to speak, at this period of time with the cycle of the yugas. So the metaverse is the next step, and it's all about getting you, again, out of the natural, out of the creator's plan for things, and into the simulation. They want to assimilate you into the simulation. And the metaverse is just that. The next evolution in social connection and next successor to the mobile internet. Yeah, imagine a set of digital spaces that you can move seamlessly in between. Like the internet, the metaverse will help you connect with people even when you aren't physically in the same place and get even closer to that feeling of being together in person. Sounds nice, doesn't it? You'll be able to connect. You'll be able to work, play, learn, shop, you name it. And eventually, again, right now it might start off with, put on your little virtual reality helm. Later on, maybe just glasses, virtual reality glasses, and then eventually it's just like the Matrix, that chip, that interface, just plug yourself straight on in or stay plugged in all the time. All the time. This is their big next plan. And you got to think about everything that we use today is their tools, our smartphones. We can see now why we have smartphones, because there's apps. You got to scan your QR code for everything. We look over in China. Where's your phone? I don't have it. You're arrested. Boom, that's it. You're under arrest. Or you just get outright beaten. This is their next step. I mean, it looks all fun and games, right? It looks all fun and games, but really what this is going to do is it's going to allow those that reside on the lower 4D to directly interact with us all the time. So you want to go and talk to Anunnaki overlord, he'll be right there.
And this is disturbing, and this is where things can get quite difficult to explain and understand, but this was the message. This is going to give rise to these 4 lower 4D entities to plug into our 3D matrix and have direct interaction with us. And we're just going to be, I would just want you to think of the matrix and how those bodies were just sitting there in those tubes, the energy being used in that sense. So that's where we're headed, and it's just not a good place. But the good news is, we don't have to go there. We all have choices and options right now. Right now we do.
Absolutely. So this is the next stage, the next evolution in their plan. And, key takeaways, it's a shared virtual environment that people access via the internet. Cryptocurrency is an aspect of the metaverse. Cryptocurrency, this is why they're going to digital money too. Yes, they're going to be able to track everything you do, everything you buy. They're going to approve or disapprove. Yes, you are a carbon-based life form that's actually heading towards being crystalline-based. But at the moment, you're a carbon-based life form, and you're going to have your carbon credits. If you don't have your carbon credits, you're going to have to go out and buy those carbon credits so you could actually buy whatever it is you want to buy. A new car, a new house, or just even something very, very simple like, a new pot and a new pan. Do you have the carbon credits for it? If not, you can't buy them. Nope. Think about it. Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. We think about Bill Gates, but, and we're focused so much on the plague upon the land and all that. And then realize again, Microsoft, that was his big thing. Yeah, he doesn't own it now. It doesn't matter. It's already in existence. And we don't know, the exact power structure of who reports to who all the time. We do know the bigger power structure, But yes, absolutely. This is the next takeaway, the next big thing. And when you look at where the internet came from, and again, think about DARPA. Well, ARPA, December 1969, 4 nodes. Yeah, the history of the internet is inextricably connected with DARPA and the development of new networking information sharing technologies. From its humble beginnings as a collection of connected research facilities to today's global and extra-global network of billions of devices, core theme of the internet's evolution has been and continues to be cutting-edge research conducted under DARPA's auspices. DARPA. Yeah, originally it was ARPA. But yeah, so it comes out of, a military application. This is military. This is a military takeover of a planet and the maintaining that takeover of a planet.
And there is a lot of talk of the separation of energies, and I've known that for a very long time, but I haven't known exactly what is it, and I think I have a little bit of a clearer perception for you guys to understand. So when we are attached to these gadgets, to this internet, to these EMFs, and if we are eating the foods that are not healthy for us and watching TV, drinking soda pop, it is going to change your entire structure. It's going to change the fabric of who you are. And there's those who do not want to go in this direction. They're going to eat food that is as close to clear and cleansed as they can possibly get. Well, as these two energies go in their own direction, it will be harder and harder for these energies to come together. It'll be an actual physical split. One won't be able to tolerate the other won't be able to tolerate the one. But we do have to decide and take a choice, because if we want to go in a more natural direction, and I do, I want to have all my senses to myself. I want to be able to utilize all my senses that I've been blessed with, plus those that are incoming. Then I'm not going to be able to mesh with that other situation where there's different foods being eaten and EMFs being thrown everywhere, and it's gonna warp my body. It's gonna make me sick, like literally sick. I won't be able to tolerate that. So the longer we sit in a situation, the more tolerant it becomes, and that's how the separation of energies, that's what it looks like, and that's how it starts.
So this particular article is trying to get the point across about understanding how 4 dimensions work. And you might have seen, a point representing 1D and a line 2D, and then getting into these other dimensional aspects of it. As you can see, this is something to give you kind of like a representation of how the densities work. It's all about perspective. And it's perspective, and being that our perspective is artificially narrowed, it makes it really tough for us to see the bigger picture from this particular point of view.
But we are allowed to talk to others, and we are allowed to share information that we have. And if others want to share that perspective and share that understanding and go deeper into it and look, then that's how we all can create a path for each other, and we can all create a kind of energy vortex that we can all take part in together.
Absolutely. So reality is so much more than what we really, really understand. And it's something that our brain is just not built to handle in these bodies. That's why it's so important to get out of these bodies through meditation. And you literally can. And again, these Tibetan Buddhist monks, many of them have, and many yogis have, and many people of other traditions, many indigenous people just do it naturally. And even the Irish have a term of being out and about when you're out there astrally projecting.
I want to use the term because for those of you who do have to go to work and have a very busy life, think decompress. Think decompress. Just allow yourself that expansion, and that's really important to do.
And so this little article would be a good thing for a lot of people to read, as this is really what Cindy has verbalized through the guides and through herself as well. It's better to understand how dimensions work and what it means to be living in third, fourth, or fifth dimension. In order to better understand that, we must think of a dimension as a point of perception rather than a place that you travel to. It's a point of perception. Those living from 3D, 4D, or 5D consciousness are experiencing the same reality on some level, but rather their way of perceiving it is completely different.
Mm-hmm. So, I want to think back a little bit to help understand that when we're talking about perception and when we're talking about the veil. And I've always said there really is no veil. Everything is out there for us to see. It just depends on how we perceive it. But if you look at the body as the 3D body, let's say it dies, or we can come at it with the perception of we shed this vehicle and we move on. That's the same thing happening, but two different ways to look at it. So if you're of that higher perception, you're going to see it as more of a shedding and moving on. And your lower perception, you're going to see, okay, that body dies, it's dead, and it's gone. So everything is always there. It's just how have we been taught? And I do want to say that a lot of things that we are taught are wrong, and they are geared toward moving our perception here, moving it there, and teaching us to be in this space, the 3D space that is most advantageous for the controllers. So all I ask is that please keep your mind open when you're learning things. Please keep that mind open so that you have an understanding that, okay, well, things might not be anchored in complete truth here. They could change, and sure they could. But then again, that's when you want to do the meditating and really get anchored inside of yourself and have that self-realization and self-understanding to help you expand in a way that you feel good about, and you're not always shaky and uncertain about, well, is this true or that's true, because you're going to be able to define that for yourself. And that's the most freeing thing of all. That's the best emotion and best feeling that we can give ourselves. It's truly a gift.
So by seeing things this way, it gives us a better understanding of how we can identify what dimension we are mostly resonating with. Because it does change. And when I wake up, I might be floating above the 3D for a while. And then as soon as I start soaking up some of the craziness that's going on in the world, when I'm looking through the news, then it's really pulling me down to the 3D. Then when I'm doing my mantras, and like I was telling Cindy, my God, it's so easy right now to get to that point of shifting your consciousness entirely out of the body and into your energy body. Well, then, we're starting to resonate onto that fifth density and the higher densities. It's all a matter of perspective, and we will shift where we're at depending on our circumstances, depending on the environment. Now, if you are living in the middle of New York City, LA, San Francisco, Atlanta, Chicago, and all day long, all week long, you're just exposed to all the EMF, and you have that high tense job that, maybe it pays well, but at the same time you're spending $3,000 for a rent, and the only time you get to get out into nature is just maybe a Saturday afternoon, or even worse, a vacation. You're going to be so damn rooted in the 3D that you're not going to even have maybe an inkling of the higher densities. Whereas if you get to go and spend a couple weeks on, say, a dude ranch somewhere out in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming or Montana, and it's just you and the horses and the big sky, you might be just flying like a bird.
Mm-hmm. And here's where a lot of people, if you're in the middle of New York City and you're trying to find some truth, you might have the perception that if you see a bird that is dead on the ground, you feel that it's gone. Or Or if someone dies, you feel death is the end. But as you rise up in vibration and you learn different truths and you learn a deeper understanding, you realize that that is not true. Life does go on. Life does move forward. And as you find peace within yourself, you find peace with all the things that are happening around you.
And so belief systems get left behind because we just move on to seeing it from a higher perspective, and we recognize, no, that was totally a misconception. And there's no way you could reabsorb yourself back into an old belief system once you've gotten past that. It's just not going to happen. But the guides wanted us to get across to you that it's a choice. It really is a choice. Some people are going to choose to be in the metaverse. Some people are going to choose to have their 5th, 6th ouchie. Maybe they'll have their annual ouchie. Just look at themselves as if they are a smartphone that's got to be updated every year. That'll be their choice. But a lot of people are also going to choose to not partake into that and take part in a higher density perspective. As you look at the 3D, they're fear-based actions, not trusting the universe, conditional love. Oh, I'll love you, but you got to stop this. Don't do that anymore, and I don't want you, watching the ball game.
Okay, so I might be someone who's guilty of conditional love, because honestly, if somebody's going to beat on me, if they're going to kick me, yell at me, call me names, I am going to put conditions on that. So I just have to throw that out there.
Well, again, somebody that's, giving unconditional love is not going to tie any sort of conditions to it. And they wouldn't have that in their heart to harm another like that. So 5D, you see fearless, ingratitude, limitless abundance. And in the 3D, we have that lacking mindset plays victim, lacking self-love, looking for love outside of self. And the 5D, divine connection, feeling oneness, alchemy mode, trusting the universe, unconditional love. I don't want to go too long, but we got a couple minutes before 50 minutes. We try to cut him at that. I trusted in the universe and started to trust in the universe more and more, and everything always worked out. It didn't mean that things didn't get harder for a while. They did. But it did work out because I'm way more at peace now than I ever was. Way more at peace. Even in the face of knowing there's an apocalypse going on, I know, clearly know all the atrocities that are being committed. And it does bother me. It still affects me. There's still times when I feel the anger welling up overwhelmingly at times. But I can't help but feel the peace, because we are also getting closer to those higher dimensions. And all it takes is just one single breath with intent and focus, and I just shift into a totally different state of being. And it's not something that I could have done in different times. These times are quickening everything, the positive and the negative, but recognize the positive. The potential that's out there is just so beautiful and so good, and that feeling of oneness. And the universe does want to take care of us. These benevolent beings are all about love. So when we get into that 5D perspective, we'll look around and we're going to see that we're just surrounded by beings of love and compassion.
Mm-hmm. Which is a beautiful thing, but I want you to remember that contract and expand. So if you are in the 3D and you are having trouble, just remember you're being contracted and you are just becoming a brighter and brighter diamond by the moment. So it's okay. There really is no good and bad. It's about how we are experiencing and how we are growing. And that's the one constant thing, is that we are always, always growing. So wherever you're at, is it the right spot? Just keep working on trying to make the next moment better than the last moment.
Absolutely. So I hope you guys got something out of this. As always, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Do check out Medicinal Foods. There's a link at the top of every video. Use coupon code EEA. It does give you a discount. Much love. God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.